What is a lesson you only had to learn once? What's the story behind it? As a toddler, I wouldn't stop trying to lick electric plugs. My mom was so exhausted of preventing me from touching the plugs she just stopped doing it. I managed to lick a plug. Never ever tried it again. When I was around 10 years old, I licked a cable once to see what would happen. Worst idea ever. My tongue felt numb and I also felt some sort of burning sensation at the same time for at least 30 minutes. When I first started a job where I had real responsibility, I learned the importance of having written evidence. I was leading a project and needed approval for a $50,000 purchase, still above my pay grade at this time. The timing was tight and needed to give the okay within a few hours. I got a verbal "of course that is okay, hurry and finish it" from my boss. Well, it turns out my boss's boss did not like it, so my boss denied the fact he gave me the go-ahead. My company proceeded to drag their feet to pay the $50,000 bill and I got cursed at by the contracting company and my boss's boss because my boss threw me under the bus. I have since learned to get written approval for everything, even if it sets the project behind. I also learned most people in the professional world will do whatever they need to do to shift the blame. Okay, so you learned a lesson. The company who sold you the $50K is also partially responsible. They should have known better than just get a verbal and nothing in writing, especially a verbal from someone junior. No offense to you. I have learned similar lessons too in my business life, from both sides of the equation. When you're having a problem with a co-worker, whoever presents their story to management first almost always comes out on top. Which is such balls. Whoever shouts first is often the guilty one, but that's never how it's treated. Never lend anything to your older brother's friends. Case in point, I let him borrow my cool wood baseball bat. After waiting 3 months to get it back, I get it returned split in half. My older sister had a friend when I was a kid. They let her borrow my Spryo. Ripped us rage. Didn't get it back for months, and when we did, it came back without the case and so scratched up the system couldn't read it. I cried my eyes out and dad had to go and buy a new one. I don't think she was allowed to borrow anything again after that. Never get in a fight with an inanimate object. It will not get hurt, but you will. I've known too many people that kicked, punched something and broken themselves. Walls don't complain. Yup, went to school with a guy who got mad and kicked a fish tank. That resulted in a severed Achilles tendon and a long time on crutches. Sire, cover your butt. At work, being the new person sucks at an office, and insisting on proper treatment can feel like a mistake, but it's so worthwhile. Started working at an office with very little in written expectations, processes, or training. Red flags were everywhere, but I was a newbie in the field and really needed a job, so I missed some red flags and ignored others. One thing that I absolutely got right, by accident, was a hardcore SIRE program. I wrote down everything during training, thinking I would train the next person better. I wrote down everything I was asked to do, trying to keep organized and not miss any assignment or task. I kept a copy of all of this on my Google Calendar Google Docs. After I left, I found out my boss was blaming me for a number of misses that were demonstrably not my fault. I ended up having to sue, and thank God I had a record to back me up. I was about 11 years old and I wanted a warm hard-boiled egg. I took the egg out of the refrigerator, peeled it, put the egg in the microwave for about 10 seconds, took the egg out and bit into it. It exploded when I took the first bite. I had a huge blister on my lip for a few days. Not so bright. Last month I heated an egg in the microwave for a few minutes, trying to hard-boil it. If my head was 12 inches to the right when the microwave exploded open and shot glass everywhere, I would be dead right now. Scary stuff. Don't touch your wang after cutting chilies, even if you think you washed your hands thoroughly. Story is that I touched my wang after cutting chilies, but I thought I had washed my hands thoroughly. If you learn this lesson for yourself, know that soap doesn't help, olive doesn't help, crying doesn't help. The only relief I found was lime juice. I think the acid must cut the capsaicin so you can actually rinse it off. Crying doesn't help, haha, sorry, but that's hilarious. Same goes for removing contacts. BTW. Friend ate hot salsa made from world's hottest pepper and touched his eye afterwards. Also after washing hands. Had to go to hospital. Said it hurt for days. Not to be stupid with water guns. I was on holiday with my family and I was about 13 and my dad had bought 2 water guns that worked by you pulling it back as it suctioned the water up. I, being a dumb idiot, decided to suction my lip and it pinged back and cut my lip open. Had to go to hospital abroad and get stitches. The early version of the Kyla lip challenge. You innovator, you. Not to get involved in office politics and to never trust HR. I thought I was good friends with the HR woman. She would come in my office and tell me all about her personal life. Even cried to me a few times. She would say things like if it weren't for you I wouldn't be able to come in every day. We were friends on social media. So in turn, I felt comfortable to talk about my own problems, especially with my boss. She talked about hers constantly so I didn't feel like it would come back to bite me. Well, as you're expecting, it did. I got pulled into my boss's office with her right there taking notes as he talked to me for 2 hours about my performance and then said I know she's a very nice person, but everything you tell her comes right back to me. So if there's anything you'd like to say you can say it now that we're both in here. And just so you know, we're not trapping you. I literally just sat there and took it and just okayed everything and did not say a word. She's avoided me like the plague since and I deleted her on all social media. As you can imagine, I'm currently looking for a new position. As you can imagine, I'm currently looking for a new position. Good call. Drinking too much Southern Comfort will make you very, very, very sick. It was my first real experience with alcohol and it was decades ago, but just the smell of SoCo still makes my stomach turn. You know in cartoons when the character steps on a rake and they get hit in the face? It's funny when Daffy Duck does it, not so funny when you're 6 years old and give it a try. That was an early do not try this at home realization. Same for banana peel. It's slippery for real. I thought it was just a cartoon joke, then I learnt it the hard way. Measure twice, cut once was something very simple my stepdad taught me when we were building a bird box when I was about 10, but it's stuck with me ever since and you can apply it to almost everything. Everyone is willing to take advantage of you. As a student in college a while back I worked as a contractor for a startup and I didn't have a written contract. I worked my butt off for 3 months while they kept delaying my pay. At the end the owner refused to pay me and stated I could go frick myself. Tried to get a lawyer but they said since I didn't have a contract it would be extremely difficult. Just had to file a labor complaint. The lesson here is always getting something on paper. What a duck. Hope their business failed. Don't stick your softie into a hole you can't escape while hard. I was a curious boy of about 11 and figured hey I got this penis and it would be cool to put it in this empty soda bottle. One thing leads to another and here I am, stuck in perma hard mode because I can't lose my erection and it's getting more painful by the second. I started panicking and called for my mom to help. Dad was at work, who was spending time with a friend of hers in the next room. She immediately tells me what a fool I am and got me some lotion and told me to lube myself and pop out while she left the room to deal with her friend. Ended up getting out without too much trouble, then inspected the damage. My hot rod didn't look very healthy so I begged my mom to take me to the family doctor. So now she has to tell her friend to leave cause her idiot son stuck his dong in a bottle and needs medical attention. Bottleneck bread strikes again. How roasting yourself in a heavy argument makes the other person very confused and mostly the only thing they can think of is, yes, that. Very helpful. Self-deprecating humor is a great strategy in regular interactions and social situation to become more relatable and charismatic too. Don't overdo it, but if you show you can play a little about yourself it can exude self-confidence. Don't get things out of a toaster over with a paper towel. I nearly set my parents' kitchen on fire at 5 years old trying to make myself a Pop-Tart. I ran into my parents' bedroom early in the morning yelling fire fire fire. I mean, that's better than trying to get it out with a fork. Never pretend that your Doberman is a muppet and fiddle with his lips, making him talk in falsetto. He grabbed my arm in his maw so fast I didn't even see it. He held it for a few seconds, looking at me as if to say, I hope I've made my feelings clear on this subject, and then released me and quietly trotted away. Didn't even leave a mark. but it did hurt and gave me something to think about. Never told my mother. She would have killed him. And we were buds. I was 5 years old. I'm 50 now, and I remember that lesson with clarity. That was a well socialized dog cause he gave you a warning. Lots of dogs won't. Don't drive tired, ever. Was 16. Was going up north to deer hunt and had to leave early in the morning. Stayed up way too late playing video games. Only got 2 or 3 hours of sleep. It was the end of November and cold outside. Got about halfway through the 2-hour drive and started to get drowsy. Cranked the music. Rolled every window all the way down. Didn't matter. Fell asleep doing 60 on a 2-lane rural Wisconsin highway going downhill. Woke up when my tires hit the left side rumble strip on the other side of the road. Had an SUV go by going the other way who was now on my right. Smashed through a mailbox, denting the hood and cracking the windshield. Cranked the wheel to avoid going into the ditch and slid to a halt on the shoulder facing the wrong way. I remember immediately starting to shake from adrenaline and a sort of cold tingle wash over me. SUV going the other way had stopped and the adults in the car had come running over. I'm still amazed because they weren't angry but super concerned about me even though they had 2 kids in the car with them. Called my dad and he drove the hour back the other way to figure crap out. I was too terrified in the moment to try driving and we had the mailbox owner to inform. Dad got there and said I couldn't have been a degree or 2 from flipping the car judging by the tire path through the gravel and since it was sloped downwards. Went and talked and worked out how much to pay. The farmer I had destroyed the mailbox of. It was like $50 or something which at the time was a lot for me cause I was only working part-time on the weekends at a grocery store at the time. Ever since then, a decade ago, I have never even come close to driving tired like that again. That is probably easily the closest I've ever come to dying. If I had been just a couple seconds later and veering I would have smashed head on with the SUV at easily a combined 100 miles per hour and possibly killed 4 other people. I was in a Subaru Outback and they were in I think a Chevy Trailblazer. Only took once for me to realize how serious driving is. Also the fact that no amount of willpower can keep you awake and the state behind the wheel. Pull over and stop if you feel tired people. Don't be me. Not to cheat in relationships. I mean, I already knew to do it at a young age, but seeing how it utterly destroyed my mom really drove it into my brain. Yeah, my dad has cheated on my mom a few times. The worst was when I was 16. Seeing what she went through did a lot to me, but definitely confirmed that cheaters are awful. When I was a kid, we went to Chuck E. Cheese's a couple of times. Each time we left, my sister and I threw huge tantrums. The next time we went, our parents warned us that if we behaved that way again, we weren't coming back. Well, we did throw tantrums again, and we never went back. That was 1995. I learned that my parents weren't full of crap and consequences were real. Kudos to your parents. Keep your mouth shut when dealing with the police. Story. Got arrested over a bacon sandwich. Steamin'. Walking home with a couple of friends. We'd gotten into the habit of going back to my house at the end of the night and making monster bacon sandwiches. Instead of getting dodgy takeaway, walked past a parked police car at the exact moment I drunkenly, and thus loudly, proclaimed, I could murder a bacon sandwich. A police officer jumped out and confronted me. He thought I was obliquely calling him a pig. I hadn't even seen the police car there. We argued. My contention was that A. I wanted a bacon sandwich, and B. He couldn't arrest me even if I had called him a pig to his face. His contention was that he could arrest me, and he did. A night in the cells ensued. Got a police issue bacon sandwich in the morning though, so I won in the end. Don't drive with a vengeance. Someone cut you off, give them a thumbs up and drive on. Someone going slow as frick in front of you, wait until it's safe and legal to pass otherwise pull over and chill out for a minute. Driver cut me off and drove slow as frick with some brake checking in front of me. Decided to say frick it and pass using a turn lane going into a curve. He cut over a bit on front and forced me into oncoming traffic. Narrowly missed a head on. Let douchebags be douchebags. If you can't beat them, leave them be. Even better, if someone cuts you off, give them the thumbs down. It says I'm not mad, just disappointed. The URL for the sporting goods store dongs is dongssportinggoods.com. I think they now have dongs.com too, but they didn't used to. Life is kinda weird. You can do everything absolutely right and still end up unhappy. Still trying to figure this one out. It's a roll of the dice. Just keep rolling them. One will hit. Use a couple of forms of birth control always. I became a dad when I was at high school still, and I don't regret it or require a time machine, but I also don't recommend it for other 16-18-year-olds. Just don't use a couple of the same form of birth control. Effectiveness of condoms versus the number of condoms simultaneously used. 0, 1, high, 2, low. Don't stick your head in the BBQ to check the spark plug is firing with the gas on. I was 8. I wish I could say that was the only lesson I needed to learn firsthand related to fire safety. Never lend money. Got an inheritance years ago, whilst with my now ex-girlfriend. She had a big credit card bill from living by herself. I suggested I pay it, she pay me back in installments. Stops me spending it and saves her on interest. I then decided I want to do some traveling, encourage her to come interrailing with me. She doesn't want to, so I go for a month around Europe. She slowly stopped replying to texts. Had it out with her one day whilst in Lake Bled over text. She felt I'd abandoned her, etc. Basically we broke up there and then. Still agreed she'd pay me back once she got herself set up in new place. 5 years later and I've got nothing. She accused me of cheating whilst I was away. Changed phone. £4 I'll never get back. Don't make fun of people, especially when they might be in earshot. When I was 13 or so, I was in the dressing room of a mall store trying on clothes with my friends, and someone with a strong accent made an announcement over the store speakers. I started loudly making fun of the accent from inside my dressing room. When I came out, the young woman who had made the announcement was the dressing room attendant and had clearly been listening to me and was unsuccessfully holding back tears. My stomach plummeted, but I was 13 and dumb, and so I didn't say anything. Just put my head down and hurried out. I vowed to never make fun of the way someone talked again, and I think in that one moment I gained a ton of self-awareness. Also, it's been over 20 years and I still feel deeply guilty to think of that moment. If you hear someone speaking with an accent, that just means they probably know more languages than you. Don't trust your friend's friends no matter how close they are with each other. My friend's friend was giving me a ride home to my boyfriend at 3 AM after we all hung out, and it ended up with him trying to force me to give him a hug and go to his house. I didn't want to give him a hug or go to his house because I felt uncomfortable doing so, and that triggered him to get aggressive with me. I did absolutely nothing to make him think I would ever do anything with him. I have a boyfriend that I love very much, which was something he knew. He threw my phone out the window, took my glasses off my face, kicked me out of his car and left me in a city that was unfamiliar to me, but not before going all apeshit, smacking me around, keeping me locked in his car for over an hour, speeding past stop signs, yelling at me and cutting me out. Shittiest experience I've had this year. Frick that idiot. Can't even deny someone a hug without being afraid they might go crazy on me. This is a scary story and very true lesson. Never trust friends. No matter how nice HR is as a person, they have no problem screwing you over. I started a new position at my job where I was switched over from an hourly employee to a salary employee. This required me to go through a 90-day probation period. During those 90 days, I had to go to a wedding in another state, so I needed 2 days off. I asked the HR lady about going about this. She wrote down my name, the dates I needed off, and the reason behind it. I asked her point blank if I needed to fill anything out. She said, "Oh no, I got everything writing down. You don't need to do anything." Left for the wedding. 2 months after our conversation, come back and find out that there was an Indeed paperwork needed to be filled out by not only myself but my supervisor. Fortunately my boss was cool about it, so he didn't mind that I left for 2 days, but that HR lady gave me a stern talking to about the importance of filling out the paperwork. What a bee. Don't be the dumb, loud one in class. We were checking an exam that had some technical mistakes, so for each one, my teacher would give a +1 on that. A lot of people failed, but these points were racking up. Now this girl, who is the said loud one, says loudly, "Alright, a little more and I'm going to pass." Then my no-nonsense professor just says, "Don't broadcast your incompetence." It was like a plate dropped and we were all quiet while he continued with the checking. That was in my first college and I just thought then that it was okay if she was a little on the cheerful side, but man, I guess you have to know your place, especially if your professor is only second to the college dean in terms of superiority. What happens a lot is that the class clown in high school, or other obnoxious kid, can get away with it in a public school because they are entitled to an education. When they try to pull that same crap in college, their professors won't tolerate it and they get a swift dose of reality. Always refuel the car well before it gets close to empty. My wife and I were driving home from a road trip with our baby. The car has a meter telling you how many more km you can drive before you hit E. With around 60 kilometers to go, we passed a crappy little gas station and I thought, nah, looks like a dump. We'll stop at the next one. But then nothing came and I got off the highway because I didn't want to run out of gas on the highway with my wife and kid in the car. I pulled into a parking lot at some diner just as the indicator went down to 0. My wife was freaking out and super pee off and I was envisioning myself having to ask a trucker for a ride to the nearest gas station while I left my wife and baby alone at some dumpy truck stop diner. I went inside to ask one of the waiters where the next gas station was and luckily it was only a couple hundred yards away, so we were still able to drive there and refuel. But it was a bad situation and now once I get to about 150 I'm already looking for the next place to stop. I failed a few classes in high school and would never really think anything of it. I'd just retake the class if I needed to. When I was in my first semester of my first year of college, I failed yet another class. I then realized that I had to now pay hundreds of dollars to retake this class that I needed in order to graduate. Didn't make that mistake twice. Don't lend money to friends unless you're prepared to lose the money, the friend, or both. Got a good amount of money from my HS graduation. Friend of mine was in a bad situation, so I'll let him borrow an amount that was either $450 or $600. I don't recall exactly since it was 27 years ago. He said he'd pay me back in a month or so. 2 months later I asked him about it. Claimed he'd have it back to me in another few weeks. Few weeks go by and nothing. I went to his house. He agreed to let me take part of his drum set as collateral. I was also a drummer, and I worked in a music store. The value was equal to what he owed me. It was about 2 weeks later that he bought his drums back from me. We've patched things up more or less in the last 5 years, but I had no contact with him for about 20 years. Sock feet and wooden stairs can kill you. I lived in a 2-story apartment that had a beautiful wooden staircase. I was in stocking feet about to go downstairs to work out in my kitchen. I stepped off the landing onto the first step. My feet flew up out from under me. I reached behind me for the railing and grabbed on for dear life. I was airborne for a slow motion minute, knowing that if I let go I'd sail down to the cement floor at the bottom and most likely die or be seriously maimed. Feet finally were overcome by gravity. My shoulder was sore for a day or two and I was pretty dang happy about it. Swimming, or more like staying afloat whilst simultaneously reaching land. When I was 4, my dad threw me into the deep end of our local family-friendly pool. Best believe I learned crap right there and then and swam my little heart out all the way back to my dad. Except for the toddlers that drowned when they got thrown in. If you have a cold, do not go scuba diving. No, blowing your nose isn't enough. Your sinuses can still be clogged and can't equalize when you go down. I found this out the hard way when one of my sinuses ruptured, was misdiagnosed as being just irritation, and then got horribly infected. The antibiotics were not fun. It was like pooping a brick factory. Never let a girl I'm not in a serious relationship with borrow my car. Car came back with a big scratch and she denied everything. I mean, it's not just girls. It goes for anyone that you loan your car out to. I absolutely hate to admit it, but there was this time I was driving in the passing lane for no reason and a guy overtook me on the right and brake checked me. He was a total C for doing a dangerous thing, but I learned my lesson and always returned to the right after overtaking or no reason to be at the left. The misunderstanding here is the fast lane. It is not the fast lane. It is the passing lane. It turns into a fast lane during moderate to heavy traffic because you will always be passing people if you are going faster in those conditions. Don't forget to wash your hands before going to the bathroom if you just cut up a 10-pound bag of jalapenos. I did just that, and holy crap, it's never burned so bad down there. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.